Hi, everyone. Welcome to this session. For this session, we have Ania Pierzchala, who's going to be talking about how we ensure that we're getting the best people to fight for animals, which I'm really looking forward to. It should be a really interesting topic. Ania has been involved in the animal rights movement since 2015 and works as HR manager in Anima International. Her main responsibilities in the organization are people, from managing local groups of volunteers to team building on the national level, including staff, recruitment, and building the organization's culture and structures. And Anna's also involved in helping to build grassroots movements in other countries with a focus on Eastern Europe. So welcome, Ania.
Hello everyone. I'm super happy that I'm here today, and I hope you'll enjoy my lecture.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining my lecture. I'm really happy that I have an opportunity to have a talk on CARE conference, which is one of my favorite events in animal rights movement. The topic of today's lecture is how do we assure we are getting the best people to fight for animals? At the beginning, I would like to introduce myself. So my name is Ania Pierzchala, and I know that it's extremely hard to pronounce my surname. I've been in animal rights movement since 2014. I work as HR manager in Anima International. I'm from Poland. Few fun facts about me. My tortoise and I are the same age. I'm a bookworm. I love reading, and I'm psychology and history freak. My hobby is running, and physical activity is something that helps me reduce stress. I really like it. And now let's move on to my main responsibilities at work. As HR manager, I focus on people. My main responsibilities at work are building organizations, culture, building grassroots movement. I'm responsible for local groups of activists in Poland. I also carrying out the recruitment process and do other HR issues. And the plan for today's meeting is starting from a few words of introduction. Why is the recruitment important? Why good recruitment process is crucial to get the best people to the organization? Later, we will move on to mistakes that I made when recruiting. I want to share some of them with you. After that, I will tell you a few words about values that I follow during recruitment process. Later, we'll move on to the stages of recruitment, and at the end, there will be time for your questions. I did my first recruitment process in 2018, and to be honest, I have learned a lot since then. And I think that our work as activists, as people in animal rights movement, our work is very often about learning things, learning new things. And I've actually learned a lot from my mistakes, but also reading and watching what others do. When I conducted my first recruitment process, I wasn't experienced in HR area. I graduated in psychology, but my specialization was health psychology. So to be honest, my experience was zero. So as many other things, I learned here a lot, also about recruiting people. So let's start from a very, very important question in the context of our today's meeting. Why is recruiting so important for the organization? I wrote down three the most important points here, but to be honest, for me, in my opinion, the list could be longer. Let's start from the first one. right people in the organization help us to build it. Above all, it's about building norms and culture. The second reason, in the long run, recruiting the right person saves us time. Of course, like the whole recruitment process, the onboarding procedure, everything is very time consuming, but in the situation when it's well done, it's this kind of effort that totally pays off. And recruitment, also well done recruitment, help us save money, because recruitment is also an investment. And as I said before, if well done, it pays off. And right now, let's move on to a very important part. Important, but because I think it's always good option to share our failures, our mistakes, because mistakes and failures are something that we can learn from. So right now I would like to share with you my main mistakes that I made during recruitment processes. The first one is recruitment in a hurry. Yeah, it had happened to me, especially when we needed to hire someone for now, and we really need this person right now. Unfortunately, the rush to recruit is very often affects the quality of recruitment, which is in the long-term run rather bad for the organization than good. The second mistake is insufficient focus on the recruitment process. This is also one of my main mistakes. As I am responsible for HR in general, my area of responsibility is quite big. And I had recruitment processes when I underestimated how much time it takes. And right now, I learned my lesson, and I know that when I plan any recruitment process, is something that I should prioritize very strongly. And if we are going to do some recruitment, I always reduce my quarterly plans to be focused mainly on the recruitment process, and I don't take any other tasks, any other responsibilities, and so on. Third mistake is heavy emphasis on hiring anyone. I think it's a little bit connected with the first one. Once I conducted recruitment, which was in which like the level of candidates was bad, but we really needed to hire someone. And we decided to choose the person who was the best, but basically it was person who was the best from people who were not good enough. And after a few months, it was a disaster. And with this decision, I think that I made a lot of work for people who were working with this person. Another one, bad estimate of the timeline. I think at the beginning, during my first recruitment processes, I was always underestimating the time that it will potentially take. And right now, I know that it's always at least 3 months, sometimes 4 months, depends on the recruitment process and the number of stages. But right now, I know that I shouldn't be very optimistic about timeline and even try to create it to give myself more time in the case of any unexpected events during the process. And the last one is over-reliance on intuition. Our minds and intuitions are not perfect. very often we base our thinking on various types of cognitive errors or simplifications. Confirmation bias is one example of such an error. We are more attentive to information that confirms our thinking, our opinions, and in the context of the recruitment process, confirmation bias can have the effect for assessing questions. If someone performed well, for example, in the initial stages of recruitment, like the first stage of recruitment, second stage of recruitment, we can score this person better in the later stages, even if this performance is not very good anymore. We can also have a tendency to judge better people who we already know. So although intuition is important, I'm currently trying to rely on it less in the recruitment process. And later in this presentation, I will tell you also how I try to achieve this. But before we'll move on, I want to share with you very important and interesting research. And I think this research is very important in understanding why recruiting even one person who is not good enough might have very bad consequences for the team. It's Will Phelps research. So let me explain what this research was about. Will Phelps divided people into smaller teams. In general, teams were collected from good employees. I think that we can call them high performers. After he created groups in 3 different variants, in 3 variants, he added a person who was so-called bad actor. And this person has to behave in one of 3 specific ways. So in the first version, this person was lazy bone. That means that in general, this person was lazy, not listening, not putting too much attention to other people in the team. This person was even like putting their feet up on the table, writing short messages during the meetings. The second option was adding a back actor who was very arrogant, and this person was giving a lot of sarcastic comments to what other people was doing or sharing within the team, like, do you have any idea what you are doing? Have you ever done something before? I don't think so. So these comments were like on a very personal level, were kind of unpleasant and sarcastic. And the third option was a person who constantly complained, like was always unhappy with everything, and made a lot of comments like, I don't think we are able to do it. Why we got this task? I don't think we have knowledge and experience to be able to do something with that, and so on. So this person like complained a lot, but also had like a very negative attitude. And the fourth group was a control group. So that means that like this group was working normally and didn't have any bad actor within it. It was like a normal group to compare the results between the first 3 and this one. And the results showed that even one person who behaves very badly or have negative attitude or is not performing very well might affect other people in the team, even if they are high performers. So for example, in the second group, with arrogant person. In this group, the communication style has changed because of it, and people became very rude. With the last one, with the last group, in which there was a person who was complaining, there was a different situation and there was different outcome. People were enthusiastic at the beginning, but after a few hours, they became very, very demotivated. So this research, I think, is kind of interesting in the context of the whole team building, because it shows us that sometimes team building is also about removing people. But here, in the context of recruitment process, it shows us what might be the result of hiring someone who is not suitable to the organization, who doesn't perform well, who has bad attitude, and how it might influence the rest people in the team. So here I sum up the conclusion from this research that might be important in the context of recruitment process. And when we hire an individual whose performance is worse than the rest of the team, we can expect the quality of the team to decrease rather than the team improving the performance of that individual. Okay, so I shared the research, which I found very, very interesting. And now I want to share with you main values that I follow during recruitment process. Here I wrote them down. First two are fairness and objectivity. We don't want to favor anyone. We want recruitment process to be fair as possible. That's why we scored anonymized and randomized answers and prepare an answer key. I will explain it more on the next slide. Second value is third value is honesty. We are honest and always open to share with people personalized feedback and get also recommendations from them how to improve our work and our recruitment processes. Next one, compassion. I think our recruitments in animal rights, as in general, it is in animal rights, are full of wonderful people. And I'm aware that recruitment is stressful for candidates. So we try to stick to the deadlines and inform them about everything. We also try to organize various stages of recruitment in a way to minimize stress accompanying the recruitment. For example, in the case of structured interview, we send a very detailed instruction and even list of the question to give them possibility to be well prepared for it and reduce their stress. And the last value is transparency. We try to be as transparent as we can. As I mentioned, and I will share more about it on the next slides, we give personalized feedback after the recruitment process. Moreover, if someone asks about something connected with recruitment, tasks, questions, stages, whatever, and we answer this question, then we share this answer with everyone in the process. So we want everyone to have equal access to information. And here I wrote down some specific actions that helps us achieve these values that I mentioned on the previous slides. Okay, so let's start from anonymization, randomization, and answer key, because all of them are connected with fair and objective recruitment process. So we all tasks and questions are scored anonymously. That means that recruiters, of course, they don't know whose ask and questions they are evaluating. Additionally, we mix all these answers with each other. So recruiters assess each question of all people separately, rather than answers of each person separately. So that means that we score questions, not individuals. Explaining it in a different way, when a recruiter gets the spreadsheet with all answers to evaluate, for example, person number 1 in question number 1 is not the same person as person number 1 in the question number 2. It's all mixed together. So why do we do it? Because we want to avoid biases. When someone, for example, starts with a very good or very bad answer, and it might be suggestive for the recruiter, even subconsciously, because of that, recruiter might under or overestimate scores in the next stages. Answer key. We prepare the answer key to be sure that each recruiter has similar understanding what is a good answer in every single question. Because of that, we have an understanding that we know what we measure. We understand what the good answer is, and that help us also conduct a fair and objective process for the candidate. Minimizing reliance on intuition. I mentioned about it, and I think that it's also connected with anonymization, randomization, and answer key. Same as fighting cognitive biases. I think that the first step of fighting is to being aware of it. It's very helpful. Opportunity to get and give feedback. I already mentioned about it on the previous slide, but in general, we give people the opportunity for personalized feedback. We also ask them to give us anonymous feedback about the process. That helps us improve our recruitment, our organizational part, timeline, and so on. In the opposite way, the feedback that we give to people, I hope, and I think that it will help them in the further recruitment process, not in our organization, but in general, in their careers, when they will try to find any other job. I really hope that by applying for a job in Anima International, they can also get an opportunity, even if they won't get a job, to learn something about themselves, about their strengths, about their weaknesses, about the things to improve. And I just hope that it will be useful for them. Okay. To sum up this part of presentation, before I will move on to the stages of recruitment process, I want to underline very important thing, that recruitment is a high responsibility task, but we believe that the time we invest in creating a good recruitment process and good recruitment tools is something that totally pays off. Okay, and the last part of my presentation is about recruitment stages. Here I wrote down list of all of them. And on the next slide, I would like to share a few words about each stage separately. Okay, so the first one is preparation. On the slide, I wrote down a smaller task connected with this part of recruitment process. So yeah, preparation is about logistic and organizational stuff mainly. Like setting up the recruitment team and choosing a coordinator. Very often coordinator is me, because I'm HR person, very often is HR person. Creating a timeline, creating space on the project management tool. We use ClickUp and Trello, but it might be any tool that you use for project management. Creating a job offer. Designing all recruitment stages. That means that in this part of recruitment process, we create questions. Based on the questions, we create questionnaire for every single stage of recruitment process. And based on it, we create also the answer key. And I think it's very, very important to have it prepared before the recruitment starts. Otherwise, it might cause a lot of delays. So that's also maybe another lesson that I learned when I was recruiting people. Okay, next one, engaging people to apply. We organize webinars, which are available for everyone interested in applying. So there's option to sign up for it. Webinars that we prepare have various different topics. What we usually do is one webinar about recruitment process itself. So we explain a lot how the recruitment process look like. We explain them timeline. We explain them every single stages of recruitment. So it's also about transparency. We want to be transparent about our actions. Another webinar is about our organization, our culture, our values. On this meeting, we often try to explain people also specific job position, requirements, skills, and so on. And very often the third webinar is about engaging people to apply. Very often people are not self-confident enough. They think that they are not good enough. So we ask our current employees to share their personal experience, because many of us had the same doubts when we were applying, that we were thinking, okay, let's try, but I don't think that I will get this job. I don't think I will be good enough or the best in the recruitment process. And I think it's kind of very often normal thing. So we are sharing our personal experience and show people that we were afraid, we had some doubts, but after all, we got this job, and we are very happy because of it. So yeah, it's about engaging people and share our personal stories connected with recruitment in animal rights. We also create a list with materials, and we do this because we want people to have equal chances. So it's a list with materials, with articles, books that might be helpful in the recruitment process. So for example, if we recruit for fundraising, we prepared a list with materials that might be helpful to gain some knowledge from connected with this area of work, even if someone is not specialist in the fundraising. I think that might be helpful, and because of that, someone can try. Another one and the last thing that we do in this part of recruitment is headhunting, but not headhunting in the traditional understanding or traditional context. I think like many companies, they headhunt to offer someone a job. So we don't do this. Like in general, we don't hire people without any process. So we rather headhunt people to engage them to apply in our recruitment process. But it also means that they are in the recruitment process on the same rules as the other people. So I wanted to underline it because I know that using word headhunting might have a different context, and it also depends on organization, company, and so on. Another part is promotion. Promotion starts when we publish job offer. We have prepared promotion plan, and we do the promotion on our platforms, internal and external platforms. Collecting applications. So in this part, we collect application by questionnaire. We have prepared questionnaire with quite long list of questions. We don't collect resumes. We believe that this form is very limited. Instead, as I said, we collect applications by questionnaire to have like better understanding of candidates' experience, skills, and motivation. And in this questionnaire, we have questions about previous working experience, educational background, motivation to work for animals, also previous activist experience or volunteering experience, which is also very important for us. I feel that CV has like very limited form, and very often it doesn't give us the most important information that we need in the context of recruitment in animal rights. Like, for example, volunteering or activism experience. I think, like, for example, being graduated in some specific faculty is not the crucial thing for us. That's why we feel that this questionnaire is better and give us like better understanding of maybe it let us meet people who want to work with us better than traditional CV. Okay, so another part of recruitment process is checking people and organization values. Is the second stage after collecting application. We are looking for highly motivated people, and we need to know that we share the same values like pragmatism, a strong reliance on scientific methods or critical thinking. We have like a list of values that are important for our organization. And if these values are not common, it will be extremely hard for us and also for this person to work with us. So I think this, in general, this stage of recruitment process is very important one. Third stage of recruitment process, tasks and questions connected with the job position. At this stage, we give candidates specific tasks and require coming up with solutions, writing down some ideas. But comparing to the previous stage, we are checking abilities and skills specifically for working in this specific role. So, for example, we can ask someone who is applying for donor management position to write a template of a newsletter. So this is an example of task from this stage of recruitment process. Fourth stage of recruitment process is structured interview. Structure, that means that this interview is based on pre-prepared script. We want to ensure that all recruiters follow the same process and rules when conducting an interview. So that means that We want our recruiters to ask the same questions to everyone, to ask them at the same order and so on, and try to give very similar conditions to people who applying to the specific job position and are in this stage of recruitment process. Reference check. I don't have much experience in this area, so I'm sharing what I know and I'm sharing what I actually do, but maybe there's a possibility to do it better. So we check references through a questionnaire and questions to be answered on scale, as well as some open question or a short call. So there are some questions on the scale, there are some open questions that we ask during the call. And the last one, almost the last one, because the last is feedback after the recruitment process, is a work trial. Work trial is about working with us for a few hours, day, 2 days, depends on recruitment, to be honest. And of course, it's fully paid. So we pay candidates for this time, for every single hour that they spend working with us during the work trial. And this stage is optional. And we have never yet carried out a work trial for our long-term activists. And it would make no sense, I think, because with long-term activists, we are in the situation that we have like very good work samples, so we don't need a work trail because we observe them on a daily basis in their regular work in organizations. So I would say that with our long-term activism, we have even more knowledge about their work, the personality traits, how suitable they are, and how to our culture and how they share our values. And the last stage is personal feedback after the process. So we ask for feedback after every single recruitment process, but we want this feedback to be two-sided. So we can get some information about improving some areas of the recruitment, but we also want to give the feedback for people to help them with their professional development, in the future career and so on. We are open and transparent to share with them everything, basically everything. During the feedback call, I share with them what every single question was measuring, what was the answer key, how the answer was. I mean, was it good or not? If it was good, why? If it's not, what was missing, and so on. So I just hope that it somehow helps people improve their performance and give them some kind of knowledge about the strengths and weaknesses and areas that they are currently working on and constantly improve. And I just hope that it will be helpful for them in their future recruitment process, in our organization, but also somewhere else. And to sum up, because I think that I was talking a lot about many stages, to give you a better overview how long it takes, I want to underline that it's about 3 months in Anima International, including the preparation stage. But sometimes we have to prolong the deadlines. So I would say from 3 to 4 months, and 3 months, it's a perfect option. And to sum up our today's meeting, I want to write down the most important thing that I would like you to remember after this presentation. The first one is that recruitment is time-consuming. We shouldn't rush it at the cost of quality of the recruitment process. The second thing, the cost of a well-run process pays off for itself. The third one, when recruiting, we should lower our standards. If only few candidates or no one meets them, sometimes not hiring anyone or stopping the process will be best choice for the organization. Create tools and ways of recruitment that allows us to strive for an objective and fair process. For us, it's anonymization, randomization, having an answer key, but for you, it might be something different. But in general, in my opinion, it's super important to think about it and create a process which is fair and objective for candidates. And the last one is take care of people in the process. So be communicative, be transparent, inform them about any changes, and just remember that on the other side of the recruitment process, there are people who are just people, so they care about animals, they really want this job position very often. Many people dream about working in animal rights movements, they are also stressed, so just remember that candidates are also just people. And in general, I think it's good if people remember our recruitment processes in the best way. And in general, I have a rule when I recruit that I want our recruitment process to be for people the best recruitment that they ever participated in, even if they didn't get a job. And I think these people, maybe I can show why this is such an important rule for me, because very often in our recruitment processes, candidates are our activists who are like really awesome people for the organization. And very often in our recruitment process, there are people who might be potential activists and do amazing things with us as volunteers. Also, these people very often are already interested in animal rights in our organization. They can be our potential supporters, potential donors. And I think it's just super important to remember about people in this whole processes, procedures, and so on, and show them that we treat them in this process fair and personally. Okay, so thank you very much. It's all from me. Thank you for your attention. I think it will be super weird to watch myself on this record. And yeah, it's time for your question. I'll be super happy to answer on all of them. Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much for that talk, Anna. I found that really, really interesting, kind of understanding a little bit more kind of what goes on the other side of recruitment than what most people are experiencing. We've got lots and lots of questions, actually, lots of really interesting questions from people. So please make sure you look at the live questions tab and upvote any questions you want to have answered. Everyone who's in the chat at the moment. So yeah, so let's get to it. So someone's asked, what do you think is worse, hiring the wrong person or not hiring the right person?
Very good question. Of course, both possible options are bad, but in my opinion, hiring the wrong person is worse because we spend a lot of resources during recruitment, and additionally on the onboarding process. And onboarding process is very time consuming, especially for people who will be working with this candidate in the future. So sometimes it takes months before a new hired person will begin to be fully independent in the work. And additionally, based on the research that I presented, I think that it shows that even one really bad person might have like a very, very bad influence on the rest of the team and building organizational culture. So I would say hiring the wrong person is worst.
Cool. Someone's asked, hey Anna, when the recruitment process is 3 or 4 months long, do you encounter the loss of good candidates because during that time they found other jobs?
Yeah, that's also a very good one. And I know that our recruitment process is long and it's time consuming. So as I mentioned in my presentation, after recruitment process, we try to conduct a survey to collect the feedback from candidates. And it's also an opportunity for us to improve our process. So in answering to this question, I can base my answer on whether someone dropped out the recruitment process from this reason and told us about it, for example, during the process, and it did not happen. And the other option is the knowledge that I have from these questionnaires. So it didn't happen either. Rather, we were getting feedback on the timeline change, which sometimes happen, and it happens in the recruitment processes, and sometimes because of that, recruitment process is longer than we expected at the beginning. And it's also stressful for the candidates, and we try to avoid it. So we rather gather feedback about postponing some decisions or some stages. However, there have been situations when someone took part in for several recruitments, and at the same time, this person was in our recruitment process, and after all, this person chose another job while having passed all the stages. But I would also like to underline here, because I think it's important that I know the process is very long, and for me, and in my opinion, it's super important to send the candidates the timeline, to just inform them, okay, here is the timeline. This is how our recruitment process will look like. It's how it probably will take. So I think it's also very important to be transparent about this issue to the potential candidates.
Cool, yeah. Someone's asked, quite a difficult question. If you make a mistake and you hire someone who in the end you find doesn't fit your organization's values, how do you resolve such a situation?
That is also a very good one and very difficult. I think that every choice in recruitment process should be well checked, no matter what do you think. Like basically, we always think that we hired the right person. So I think all the choices should be checked. And I think that the first couple of months, even half a year, is crucial. And it's very important to check and observe their new recruit. And by doing this, we can catch some issues. And I think that onboarding process is also important here. So before we make the decision to fire someone, for example, we should also consider whether we made the mistakes, for example, introducing this person to the work or in the onboarding process. So yeah, I think that in this kind of situation, I would consider where is this mistake, like, is it in our recruitment process? and we choose the wrong person. Maybe it's on the onboarding process, but for sure, I think keeping people who are not suitable for the organization and organization culture in the long-term perspective is a bad choice.
Cool. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think about the onboarding process as being so important with that, but yeah, really sounds like it's really key. Another question was, what sorts of interview tasks have you found work well to identify whether a candidate would be the right fit for a given job?
I think the key tasks here are in the second and third stage of recruitment. So it's checking organizational values and checking skills associated with specific job position. We don't usually, no, I think like in general, we don't reject someone based on, for example, one tasks. So I would say that these stages, especially the second stage, are the most important for us.
Cool. Someone has asked, how often do you hire people who weren't volunteers of Untitled Chapter before?
I don't know. It happened a few times. It's true that very often in Otwarte Klatki we organize internal recruitment. We have like very strong base of activists, and our organization is full of wonderful people. So all these people, they know very well the organization, our culture, our values, and very often are very good candidates. So it's true that very often we recruit people internally, but also there are many, not many, but we had situation when we hired someone who wasn't activist before.
That's interesting. Does the recruitment process look very different if someone's internal versus external?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. This is quite an interesting question. Someone's asked, what would Anna from 2021 advise herself who was doing her first round of recruitment many years ago? What sort of advice would you give?
Oh my God. There will be so many advices, I think. Don't hurry. Don't be in a hurry with the recruitment process. That's the first thing that I also mentioned. I think that also in my first recruitment processes, we didn't use all these methods that we are using right now. I mean, randomization, anonymization, and so on. But I also think that during my first recruitments, I didn't put too much emphasis on candidates. So that's another thing that I would advise myself: just pay more attention to the people who recruit, because they are stressed, they care about the whole process, and very often they really care to get this job. They really want it. So I think that's another thing. But my main mistake and the worst one was recruiting in a hurry.
Right. Yeah, it seems like that can really kind of put you in a bad spot, as you were saying earlier, kind of do more harm than good potentially if you end up with the wrong candidate. So yeah. So someone's asked, how do you ensure that candidates share the same values?
So by the second stage of recruitment, so I would say by creating a good question which can measure our organizational values. But I think that, yeah, like organizational values might be totally different for different organizations. So at the beginning, the thing that I might advise is to identify what these values are, because they won't be common for every single organization in our movement. So yeah, like identify these values and try to come up with some ideas for the question, how to measure them. that's what we did.
Right. So you assess the values based on kind of questions rather than like some sort of task or something. It tends to be more question based.
Yeah.
Cool. Someone's asked, if you're giving applicants feedback based on their answers and the answer key, how do you ensure that they still answer honestly next time they apply and not just answer what the recruiter would like to hear?
Well, I think that in general, it's not like that every single recruitment is the same, but also we don't share like the specific answer key. It's like more sharing the information. If I said something like that, I apologize, because we rather share with people what this question was measuring and what they did right or wrong in specific questions. So it's not like that we share like, you know, the whole answer key with all the details about the assessment of specific questions in the recruitment. So they don't get this information. They got quite general information what we were measuring in every single question, and additionally they got information in which question they answered the worst and the best, and we try to explain them. So it's also, it doesn't look like that they get information about all recruitment tasks and questions, only this one, which were the best and the worst for them. Yeah.
Right. So I guess the emphasis is on trying to tell the candidate how they could improve, I suppose, and kind of develop themselves. That makes a lot of sense. Someone's asked how many candidates on average apply for one job at Anima. Does it depend on the position, and does it influence the recruitment process? So does that influence the efforts to headhunt people, for example?
Yeah, it influenced the recruitment process a lot. And for example, it might cause, okay, I will start once again. It's really hard to say what's the average number is, because very often it depends on recruitment. So sometimes when we recruit internally from our activists, it's around 20 people, but when the recruitment is external, the number is much higher. So last time we had a recruitment when we had like 400 candidates, and it influenced the recruitment process a lot, because I prepared the timeline, and when I saw how many people is interested in recruiting, I had to change it completely because it required adding additional stages of recruitment. So it's really hard to say what's the average number here, because like, as you see, there is like a big difference between 20 and 400. And it also depends on the recruitment process.
I think we've got time for one more question quickly, and then I think that's, unfortunately, we're going to have to call it because there's so many of them. Someone's asked, how do you deal with applications from volunteers? On one hand, you know them well, so the risk that they won't perform well is lower. But on the other hand, there can be a bias to hire people you already know. Yeah,
that's a very good question. And also, there are many people in the organization. So we are in the situation, me and other people who are engaged in the recruitment, that we might know someone better, even because someone is in our team or someone has been working with us longer. So that's why we introduced this method that I mentioned. I mean, anonymization and randomization. So we don't score, we don't assess people, we assess the specific answer, and we have no idea whose answer we assess. Yeah, we knew that this is a problem, especially when we recruit internally. That's why we wanted to create such methods which help us be objective in the whole recruitment process.
That makes a lot of sense. Great. There are lots more questions, but unfortunately, I think that's all we have time for here. Anna, thank you so much for this talk. I think it's been really interesting. So There's going to be an opportunity for some networking now. So there will be a Zoom link posted in the event channel. So if you'd like to speak with Anna more over the next 15 or 20 minutes about anything, please join us in the Zoom room. But otherwise, thank you very much for attending the session.